I can't say nothing bad about it, man.
Love it, man. Love it. Hey, that interview with Eazy E that you were talking about earlier was on Arsenio Hall. What do you remember about Arsenio's come up? Because I was at the age where he just showed up on my TV one night, and here's this guy, and he's entertaining, and he's bringing on cool people. But what do you know about his come up? And apparently, he was a real funny stand-up comedian before that, making his rounds.
Arsenio, like everybody else, man. And here's one of the things I wish I had a phone back then, because on Sundays, me and Unknown, and sometimes my girls, whatever, we'd always go to the Comedy Store in Hollywood. At the Comedy Store in Hollywood in the 80s, you saw everybody. You saw Richard Pryor, you saw Jay Leno, you saw Arsenio Hall, you saw people, Eddie Murphy. I mean, regular. I mean, trying to get up and couldn't get up all the time. Okay, and Arsenio was one of those guys. Paul Mooney was the closer at the. He was always close. He was so controversial. You could tell when Paul Mooney came on because the room was shift. White people would leave, black people would come in. Okay, black people got there about 11, so Paul Mooney went on about 12:30, maybe 12 o'clock. And as soon as he started talking about white people, they start boning out. Well, Arsenio was one of those guys that came up in that era. And I never thought he was that funny. He was always cool, but he wasn't that funny to me. He never made me just roll over laughing like Eddie and Richard and everybody else did. He got a good chuckle out of me, okay? But when it came to his television show, he was hard to beat. He had more of a Johnny Carson, a black Johnny Carson appeal than he did a Richard Pryor comedian appeal. Okay, his stand-up was okay because he came up in that era, but when it came to the hosting part, he had that on lock. I mean, it was the same thing when you go down to the when they started when we left the Comedy Store. My boy Michael Williams opened up the Comedy Act Theater, and that was exclusively for black comedians. All the Wayans, Robin Harris was the host. All the Wayans, Eddie Murphy, everybody came to that spot. AJ Johnson, everybody came up through the Comedy Act Theater. And Arsenio Hall was one of those acts too. Now again, I'm sitting there, why? When he got his show, I was confused. Why he got a show and nobody else got a show? But he was good at the show. He just wasn't as funny to me. That's all.
A little safe to say he was safe, to put in quotes, for those he won't scare the white
right.
people.
He was safe. He was very safe. Okay, he knew how to play the game. Sinbad. Oh man, Sinbad was a monster. He was a monster back in the day, dude. I mean, he was a clean monster, and that's what made it so cold. He was just a clean monster. I ain't say rest, but I hope he gets better, man. I love to see him do his comedy again. He had a stroke. I would love to see him do his comedy again, man. He was a funny dude. I met him at the N.W.A show a few years back, man. He's a cool brother, man. Real cool brother. But Arsenio, he definitely was.
Is he the one that got into it with friendly with the? Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's an echo, so there's a little slight hesitation. Is he the one that got into it with Robin?
Yeah.
Back and forth, and everybody was just
Robin Harris. Robin Harris and Sinbad got into a bagging session. And dude, it was so funny that people literally had to run out the room just to get air. You ever laugh so hard you can't breathe? Dude, you couldn't breathe. You could not breathe. It was so hard. People just get up and start running out the room just to get some air to stop hearing this shit, because if you keep hearing it, you're going to fucking die, okay? It was like that, dude. They gave Robin Harris, Sinbad a microphone, man, and him and Robin just went back for it like two gunslingers, and they was knocking each other down every step. Every time those two fighters, they were bam, 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 bam. It was like watching a Rocky movie. Apollo Creed hit him with a 1-2 piece, and Rocky come back with a 3-piece. It was back and forth. It was just a cold heavyweight bout. Guess right, Martin. It was a cold heavyweight bout, man. That almost killed 40 people that day. Dude, we had to run about the room.
Love that story, man. Love that story. So let's wrap it up with the the documentary before we move on to the nigga verse. But what's next for the documentary?
Got some meetings, people interested in it. Got a phone call. Might have another screening coming up sometime. Hopefully, it looks like it might be in Long Beach. In another film festival. The Michel'le Film Festival takes place in June. If it's not placed by then, we'll be in that as well. It's just, right now it's a new grind. We got some more changes to make, and but we got some. We got 95% of what we want already. There's a couple of new things. People came to the screening who should have been in the documentary and like, oh my God, I didn't realize what you guys have done. Man, please, 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 please. Oh no, yeah, okay, you got that. So that's where we are right now.
Nightbreed has an interesting question. Why wasn't Eve After Dark on the breaking movies instead of Radiotron?
Because Eve After Dark was on the east side, and people don't come to the east side unless you invited. That's the difference.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we was on the east side, baby. We Eve After Dark is right there near Watts and Compton in the 80s. You not coming across over there unless you know where you're going, okay? And that was different. Radiotron was right there off of Wilshire and by Echo Park. So it was a little bit safer, closer to Hollywood, and you get your ass out there a lot faster.
You mentioned Uncle Jam's Army being it was the battle for LA. That was your main competition. But who are some of the other maybe promoters or clubs in LA that were your direct competition back in those days?
Well, they had a couple of clubs. I would never call them competition because the Eve After Dark just had a whole different thing going. They had the Showcase. That's what Disco Daddy started at back in the day. He was on Adams, and my brother used to go there all the time. That's when I first heard of Disco Daddy, was at the Showcase. Then they had the Workshop, which was on Western, 91st and Western, and they were kind of our competition, but they had to close early. But we was open till 6 o'clock in the morning, so couldn't nobody fade that. Dance promoters wise, there was the godfather of dance promoters is a guy by the name of John Carter. His company was called JC2. He did the Proud Bird, and back then his house band was Ohio Lakeside Express, which later became Lakeside. So I'm in the 10th grade going to his dances, watching him. And you had LSD Promotions who came up right behind them, or right behind him. They were big dogs for a while. Then V-Cars and Elite Productions, and then me and Roger came in around the third string, the third round of the dance promoters. Folks were starting to move in. People had made money and started doing other things with their money. And me and Roger has doubled down on hip hop and bigger events and doing clubs. I had a club, I wasn't going nowhere. Okay, 86, I'm like, shit, I'm good. And then I started doing doodles and Skateland and made records. Most of the guys got into other stuff. They got into real estate and insurance business or whatever the case may be. So it kind of that was the seed money for a lot of other businesses. And I just stayed in the entertainment game. Roger and I both stayed in the entertainment game.